Hello and welcome to the Football Friday podcast draft recap. If you saw us the first time, we were previewing the draft, and of course, since the draft was this past weekend, we're going to talk about what happened in the draft and end the speculation and everything. So, as was last time, Matt Catrillo, who was in the plaid polo there, will be our host and navigate us through. We have an extra guest this time, but Matt can introduce us. So, Matt, take it away.
Well, I thank you very much, Alex. Of course, I am Matt Catrillo. Of course, you remember all of us from the Football Friday show on 91.7 WCUC out in Clarion University, and we are back. We had our first original show to preview the draft a couple weeks ago, and now we decided that went pretty well, so we're going to come back now and recap the draft, and then we'll see what goes from there. So I'm Matt Catrillo. That was Alex Kazora, who just opened up everything. Next, we have Tyler DeGiacomo, and joining us for this week is Ian Hunter, who will give us another Steelers perspective because we wanted to make things a little bit more even since Alex has to put up with us Philadelphia dudes for the last 2 years since D-Jock joined the show our junior year at Clarion. So we brought Ian in to get the Steelers perspective, but of course for the rest of the NFL, so he'll be with us for the entire show. So Ian, welcome aboard to the podcast here and joining the Clarion alum.
Why, thank you for the invite.
All right, so let's get going, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down the Steelers draft recap, and we'll give some draft grades for that. Then we'll talk the Eagles draft, give their draft grades as well. And then we'll go into a couple of discussions, big things that popped up in what was a pretty wild first round, probably one of the more memorable ones. I know that we've said this every year, but I think it's safe to say this was a pretty memorable draft, especially the first round. And of course, what happened with Laramie Tunsil, he slides all the way to 13 in Miami. So we'll talk about if any of you guys were GMs, would you have drafted Jeremy Tunsil? Surprising of Miles Jack fell all the way to the second round. Jalen Smith going to Dallas. Thoughts on that? And then we'll get into the rest of our winners and losers from the 2016 NFL draft. So first, we're going to start with the Steelers draft recap. And Alex, I'm going to start with you. And when I look at the first 3 picks of the Steelers draft class, when you're looking at Artie Burns, Sean Davis in the second round, and then Javon Hargrave in the third round. These are 3 guys, Alex, that are pretty much could and probably will start right away for the Steelers defensively. And this has been the big talk in Pittsburgh. How comfortable would the Steelers and the fan base be by having 3 new starters on defense to start off the season? So, Alex, I'm going to start with you since you've looked at the tape already, I'm sure, of how these guys can fit in right away and how big of an impact and how quickly can they make that impact.
Well, I don't know if anyone's going to be a bona fide starter right away. I actually think Javon Hargrave, the third-round pick, the nose tackle from South Carolina State, has the best chance to be an immediate impact guy. I think he can play the nose. He can definitely play in sub-package football and spell Hayward and Tuwood in their nickel front, which they're going to run 70% of the time this year. I think Burns has a tough path to become a starting corner. He's got to beat out basically Ross Cockrell, who was on the roster last year, and Burns as a junior kid, only 23 career starts. The experience really isn't, there, so he could take a lot of seasoning. And then Sean Davis, I think, he's probably not going to be the starter immediately. Maybe mid, late season. But I think he can have a role in the dime package, which the Steelers used in third and long quite a bit last year, especially down the stretch. So I don't know if I see an immediate, guy getting 100% of the snaps. But you're going to see guys that can have, niche roles and be impact players.
So, Ian, let's get your thoughts in here now. I know you've been really a big fan of what the Steelers did in the draft, so I'll get your thoughts here on what you like out of these first 3 picks.
I really love the third-round guy in Javon Hargraves. I thought of all the first 3 picks that he was the guy, like Alex said, can make the immediate impact very, very quickly. One of my favorite picks in the entire draft was Sean Davis, was one of my favorite players coming out of Maryland. I love the versatility that he brings. He has cornerback and starting safety potential. I think he can play either position in the NFL. Artie Burns is a guy with a tremendous amount of upside. So you're thinking a couple years ahead with a guy like that, and you're thinking, Willie Gay, how many years does he seriously have left? He grooms a guy like Artie Burns to take over, and he'll be the starting guy in a couple years once Willie Gay hangs it up.
Now, D-Jock, we'll go to you. What do you think of these first 3 picks here for the Steelers, and when you look at the rest of the draft class for Pittsburgh?
No, basically, I think they did very well. The first 2 picks addressed that secondary need, definitely needed that. And as Alex Neen said, Hargraves could be the guy that makes the biggest impact, at any of these draft picks. And you're looking at a draft class that about 6, of the 7 draft picks could make the team. Matt wouldn't yet get to our Philadelphia homers here yet, but their 7th round pick.
We're just about to get to that.
My boy, Temple linebacker Tyler Matakevich, who Alex is not that high on. I kind of talked to Alex off the air last night. Alex doesn't like him too much. I know I'm a big homer with that, but I think he's a great linebacker. Could make a career on special teams. But you're looking at all 7 of these draft picks possibly making this roster, but definitely 6.
Now, I'm a fan of Tyler Matakevich, too. We talked about that, Tyler and Alex, in our last podcast previewing the draft. And, Ian, after you looked at Matakevich on tape, too, I know you're a big fan, so give me your thoughts a little bit of what you see from Tyler Matakevich on tape for the Steelers.
I love the fact that the kid is just a true blue football player. He's diagnosed to play. He does it very well. He tackles. I still think that Christian Hackenberg from Penn State, probably 3 sacks against Penn State in that opening weekend. He was all over the place. The issues I have with him are just, I think he's going to be limited athletically, which is why I think special teams is where he's going to make his bread and butter. And we've seen a lot of guys who've made nice careers out of being special teamers, and I think he could be a pretty decent one.
Now, Alex, of course, Tyler just alluded to you not being as big a fan as Tyler Matakevich. Of course, a lot of people were surprised, too, that he slid all the way to the last 5 picks of the draft. So, Alex, look at your thoughts now on what you see from Matakevich on tape and some improvement that you want to see from him as the Steelers begin rookie camp soon.
Well, just to clarify, I think it's all about value with him. I know DeGiacomo had said I don't really like him. I like him. I just didn't want him to be a guy that was going in the 3rd, 4th round like a lot of people thought. I mean, I'm okay with taking him in the 7th because he's going to be an ultra-competitive guy who's going to make your room better, going to make your team better, going to make your organization better. He's going to be able to be a guy that could give you something on special teams. And when you're talking 7th round, you want competitive guys that push everybody else and work their tails off to create a roster spot. The Steelers' 7th round pick last year, Gerard Holliman, did absolutely 0 of that. He was flashy, but he had no bite. It was all bark. So in the 7th round, I am more than okay with taking Matakevich, even though I recognize his limitations and that I think at best he's going to be a core special teamer. He's not going to start in this league. But he's a guy that did 481 tackles in college football, and there's not many people that can say that. So that is very impressive.
And he was basically the leader of what was a pretty impressive Temple defense that really carried the team at times throughout the season and really had an impressive showing, as I talked about, against the Penn States, against Notre Dame's of the world, with everybody watching on national TV. Are there things for him to definitely improve on? Absolutely. Ian, you mentioned a couple. Alex, of course, you did too. I think he's a good tackler. I just love the enthusiasm and the heart that he brings to the game, and I think you need that type of mentality to be a good special teams player in the NFL, especially when you're trying to make a roster in a spot like he is, like you said, Alex. And I think he can definitely do that and then work on his other techniques to get himself into the actual defensive lineup on the field. So I think it was definitely a good value pick for the Steelers. I think it could be a steal depending on how far he can improve down the road. But I definitely like what I saw from Matakevich on tape. I thought that was a great pick for the Steelers on the 7th round. But I didn't think he was a 3rd or 4th round pick, Alex. Right. I did think at best he'd be a late 5th round, early 6th round pick. I did not expect him to slide to the last few picks of the draft. But I thought he would go somewhere late 5th, early 6th, maybe the mid 6th. But I still think I agree with that. That is definitely a good value pick, and this could turn into a really good pick for the Steelers later on in his career.
I don't think I'd throw around the term steal because I don't think he's got starting potential in this league. I mean, let's just face it. In the land of 11 personnel and 10 personnel, which the Steelers faced, I think, 68% of the time last year, a guy like Matakevich is not going to be able to exist out there and carry tight ends down the seam. And he's a zone drop, hook zone at best. He's not going to be your, Tampa 2, middle down the field, man coverage or zone coverage. So I think there's very limited in that. But if you can get a core special teamer out of that, a 7th round pick, that's fantastic. So I think the potential for that is there.
Now, before we move on to the Eagles, I'll go to all 3 of you guys and see if did you guys give actual letter grades? I know some people like this, some people don't. I don't know, Alex, if you were able to give any letter grades. So we'll start with you, or maybe an overall grade for the Steelers draft. Or
I don't have an overall grade in mind, and it's not because I'm so opposed to giving a letter grade. I know some people are, like you said, Matt. I think if you're going to do grades before the draft and grade players and things like that, you should be okay with grading after the draft. So I don't have a problem with that. I just don't have a criteria. What is an A class? What is a B class? What is a C plus? I don't have an idea. I do like this class, and as some national circles have kind of dogged it, but like the bottom line is you've gotten a lot of productive, scheme versatile in tough physical players. And I think from a very baseline level, I think that's a great way to have a draft class framed. I think a lot of those guys have potential.
Ian, how about you?
I don't really have a grade for the class in general. I look at draft picks on a pick by pick basis of, okay, I like this guy here, I like this guy here, I like the value here. Overall, I like the class a lot, as Alex said, but I don't really have a whole draft grade. Not that I'm against it, it's just not something I usually do.
All right, and D-Jock, we'll finish off with you.
No, I thought it was a pretty solid draft. As I said, the first time around, they definitely addressed their secondary needs there with the two cornerbacks and getting Hargraves. I mean, none of these players are definitely flashy. None of them are not at the top of their positional charts right there. But I think top three guys definitely fit that Steelers criteria, fit that Steelers system, and kind of Steelers mentality for it. So for Pittsburgh specifically, I think those three players definitely top, and Manikevich at the end there, it definitely fit that Steelers mentality.
Real quick, my favorite pick of the day 3 group was Travis Feeney, the outside linebacker from Washington. I think he might play inside down the road, but this is a super athlete that is long, ran a 4.5 40, a 40-inch vert, 10-10 the broad. Played everywhere. He played safety, played the will, he played the Sam, the Buck in 2015, 17 and a half tackles for a loss, 8 sacks. Just a super athlete, smart guy. Was drafted by the Oakland Athletics in 2011 as a left fielder. So you just kind of see this crazy athlete. He's got some injury problems, some pretty serious shoulder issues, but I think that's a guy that has the potential to start, and that's maybe the only day 3 kid with really real starting potential.
And of course, you had another memorable pick too, Alex, the kid from Minnesota. Yeah, I got that right for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the other memorable pick I liked, Alex, in the 4th round, Minnesota taking the kid from Germany. I thought that was a pretty cool story. We'll see what kind of impact he can make.
Yeah, and that was maybe a little Mike Mayock influence. And we all know the Mike Mayock man crash that I have.
Of course. Well, guys, let's go to the Eagles now in their draft. And it's funny, a couple days after that, after we did the original draft podcast with myself, Alex, and D-Jock, that was when all the craziest ensued. The Rams trade up to get the number 1 overall pick, and then a few days later, the Eagles trade up to the number 2 overall pick. First time in a long time that's happened in the draft. And so let's go right to the question, guys. Of course, Jared Goff goes 1, Carson Wentz goes 2 to the Eagles. First question, I'll start with D-Jock, is should Wentz see the field at all in 2016, and did you agree with the Eagles moving up to get him?
Oh, 2-part question. I'm going to answer your second question first and your first question. So the Eagles have moved up to get him? Absolutely. I think any time that you need a quarterback, a franchise quarterback, and you do whatever it takes to get up there. You kind of see, the tails of two teams. You have the Colts have a terrible roster, probably have one of the worst rosters in the NFL. But you have Andrew Luck, so they're going to win 10, 11 games every year. And if it doesn't work out for the Eagles with Wentz, okay, then so be it. There'll be another quarterback down the road there. So absolutely, the Eagles didn't even give up that much in there. I know kind of the early prognosis was Fletcher Cox, the D tackle, would be in there. He was not, so that's good for Eagles fans. But you didn't give up too much. You got some draft picks back there in day 3, and they made a good haul there. Should Wentz see the field in 2016? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say he shouldn't even see the field in 2017 either. That's another question. So I think definitely they should put Wentz in bubble wrap for this year. I think the Eagles do get it done with Bradford. I think Bradford does come out with a little chip on his shoulder and has a very good year. And I think a very good year would constitute, winning a playoff game. And if Bradford can win a playoff game, he will be back for the 2017 season. It is a 2-year deal the Eagles have with Bradford with a bye after 1. So my little prognosis, my crystal ball is Bradford comes back, sucks it up, has a great year, wins the Eagles a playoff game, comes back in 2017, Wentz sits again, Bradford gets a good contract, they trade him away to another team, gets a good free agent contract. So I'm going to say Wentz does not see the field this year and does not see the field next year.
Well, I would love to say, Tyler, that would be an ideal situation for the Eagles, but because of how everything's kind of exploded with Sam Bradford at this point, not showing up to voluntary workouts, being unhappy with the Eagles trading up to get Carson Wentz, I just don't think he's got a chance to really fulfill his career, and he's obviously not going to be the long-term guy. It's obviously going to be Carson Wentz, so I don't have a problem with him being upset, but I do have a problem with the trade because I think if you had to have a guy like Sam Bradford, he was already working on his chemistry a little bit more in depth with guys like Jordan Matthews, Zach Ertz that were out in Oklahoma way before the camps and the draft process started. And now you bring in Carson Wentz, and now that kind of blows everything up, and now you're going to still build around him. And I just don't like where the Eagles have gone at this point because I think you've had a guy in Sam Bradford, a very good second half of the season, 7.5 games. All you have to do really is just build up the offensive line because the offensive line was horrendous last year. You give them some better weapons, which I don't think they really did through the offseason, and you keep building the defense, which they've done a nice job of doing through free agency. So I think the Eagles could have won now. Now they put them in a position where they can't do that because I don't think you can bring Bradford back because it's become a toxic situation you don't want the young guy in Carson Wentz dealing with, and now you'd be forced to put yourself in that situation. So I would not have done that trade if I were the Eagles. I would have gone and stayed at number 8, taken an offensive lineman, and of course, as luck would have had it, Laramie Tunsil could have fallen right into their lap, or they could have picked a Ronnie Stanley. Because of the way the board went, because the quarterbacks were going to go 1-2 no matter who was there, you would have been a good spot to get somebody that was going to come in, make a big impact right away. But as far as when seeing the field, I would agree with you as well, Tyler. Unless it's a lost season, maybe you put him in the last game or two just to kind of get a little taste of the actual regular season NFL game speed. But I would not play him this year because, as I've said before, and on record of saying, I'm not a big fan of him on tape. I think he's got a lot of work to do, and putting him in first year, week 1, would be a total disaster for him as far as his growth.
May I answer back? Do you want to go to Alex and Ian first?
You can answer back real quick, and then we'll get back to
Alex. I'll try to be quick. I think Bradford at his best is not elite. He's had 7 8 years to prove himself as a franchise quarterback, an elite quarterback, and he has not shown that. Albeit he was in St. Louis, didn't have the good team around him. But a franchise quarterback doesn't whine. Even if the Eagles drafted Wentz, Bradford, it should be more motivation for him to, beat out this rookie guy to, show him the word. The first thing you do is just, trade me. The leverage is kind of equal right now. Sam Bradford wants a big contract, but he has to play. If Bradford's not going to show up for mini camps, then the Eagles are going to say, heck, Bradford, you're going to be our third string quarterback. You're not going to play at all. And then, how do you like that? But there could be a common ground. Eagles say, all right, Bradford, go out, prove yourself this year, and then in good faith, we'll try to trade your way to a solid team, try to get you a good contract there. But I think just the upside of Wentz, which you have to go out. Bradford's already injury prone per se on the backside of his career right now. You have Wentz, whose ceiling is high, and all the sports writers love him and stuff. So I think you're never going to get anywhere with Bradford. Bradford's a mediocre quarterback, a little bit above average. Yeah, he had a good final 7 games, but people like you are going to get wrapped up in those 7 games when his first 11 games were horrendous. So I just think that that's the right move. Wentz is going to sit a year, whether it's behind Bradford or Chase Daniel. I think just Wentz will be a very good quarterback for years to come.
All righty, let's get you in here. Did you like what the Eagles did, and do you like the pick of Carson Wentz at number 2?
I do. Carson Wentz was my number 1 quarterback pretty much throughout the entire process, and while I didn't quite buy into the Big Ben and Andrew Luck comparisons, I really like Carson Wentz. Matt, I know that you're not a huge fan of him, but you know what? I love the fact that he's a gamer. I love the fact he has the arm, and he'll try to fit that ball into any space that he can. And I think I'm also in a different idea when it comes to this. The knock on him is going to be, is he going to be able to play against these guys in the NFL level? Obviously, he didn't play against big-time collegiate football players. So there's only one way to get him used to the speed of the NFL, and that is to play him. If you're gonna have issues with Bradford, then cut your losses, be done with it, trade him now. Who cares what you get back? You got your supposed franchise guy. Just play him. You'll find out if he can handle it. He's played against Iowa State, and he showed some things against that one when he played against them in 2014. There's something there, and I think that if you can get him out there, fine, he's going to struggle his first year, but get him out there, get him used to playing in the speed, and make sure he's ready to rock and roll for 2017.
Well, like I said, I definitely agree. Getting rid of Bradford, I just don't think it's a good situation for Wentz to be in and dealing with all that nonsense. The Eagles got to find a way to get him out, which is going to be really tough considering the contract. And the right time for them to trade Bradford would have been with the Denver Broncos, and they turned him away because they had too high of a price tag, and they had multiple chances reportedly during draft weekend. So now finding a trade partner is going to be really tough unless there's an injury that happens in training camp, which of course does happen. So it's going to be another interesting, dramatic situation for the Eagles, like it always is. But Alex, I know you're a fan of Wentz, and actually you're a fan of really this quarterback class in general than most people are. So we'll get your thoughts in here now about Carson Wentz.
Oh, there's a lot of information to take in, especially from DeGiacomo and yourself, Matt. There, it's like a little hamster spinning the wheel of information. I think obviously the Bradford situation is not great. No one's trying to paint it otherwise, but he's going to play this year. He's going to get through. He's not going to be the happiest camper about it, but I think people are making too much out of it. He's missing some voluntary time. Once training camp happens, he's going to get in there. He's got a $20 million paycheck coming his way. He doesn't want to get fined. He's a competitor. He wants to play football. He wants to win, so he's going to go out there. He's going to play. Probably be his final year, and they'll deal with it in the offseason. I don't, your thoughts on the chemistry, Matt? Is this toxic to Wentz? Wentz isn't 8 years old. He can handle it. He's fine. He's been in hyper-competitive areas before. He sat behind Brock Jensen as a backup before, so he can sit as a backup. He's not going to get destroyed by the Philadelphia media. He's got a good head on his shoulders, a great personality, a high-character, personable guy. To the point about when he's going to play, I don't think Wentz is going to see the field at all this year, and that's what it should be. If you can give a guy a year to sit, then I'm all for it. And he's not an anticipatory quarterback who's coming from a smaller school, so you want to give him that year. And you have Chase Daniel, even if something happens to Bradford, as a plan B. But I don't think you're going to see Wentz sit for 2 years. I mean, you're a franchise guy. You do have to start playing. And Wentz is 23 years old right now. But if you were to sit him for 2 years, by the end of his first year playing, his third year, he'd be 26 years old. So you want to start accelerating that process and start throwing him to the NFL and seeing what you have in this guy, because maybe you missed. And if you missed, you want to find out relatively soon so you can cut your losses and find somebody else. So I think 1 year is fine. It's more than enough time to learn the NFL. You come in year two, and then you start playing some football like the number 2 overall pick should.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Tyler.
I was like, Alex, it's even if, I think if Carson Wentz comes out in training camp in the preseason and can show that he's got the offense and he's up to speed, I mean, it's kind of question a statement. That'd be a tough one. If Carson Wentz comes out in training camp, preseason, lights it up, you're going to have a hard time not playing him. But I think the right answer is to not play him. But again, I mean, these Philadelphia fans, Matt, you know him very well. If Wentz comes out and starts lighting it up, I guess, Alex, you're the better football mind here. Would you go with Wentz to start the season if he, throws and shows well in the preseason?
No, you have a plan. You create a plan. I'm sure they have their outlook for Wentz's career, and you do the best you can to stick to it. Yeah, I'm sure Wentz is going to have some good moments in training camp and preseason. He's got a lot of natural tools, but that's training camp and preseason. Those are some third-string guys. A lot different than whoever they have week 1. I don't know who the Eagles have week 1, but there's another joke. Yeah, Tampa Bay. So you have another. You're not facing Gerald McCoy in the preseason. So you stick with your plan, and only if absolutely necessary do you put Carson Wentz on the field year 1. But year 2. You open it up. It's a 5-year deal. You sit him for 2 years, you're missing 40% of that contract. I want to get this guy out there. I want to see what he can do. And if you think you draft him because you think he can win, well, then start playing him so you can win.
Go ahead, Tyler.
No, sorry, Matt. But kind of what I was saying, Alex, if Bradford comes out and has a great year and takes to the playoffs and wins a playoff game, are you still going to go to Wentz, or are you still going to maybe ride the hot? If Bradford comes out, throws for 30, 35 touchdowns, and wins you a playoff game, something Philadelphia hasn't done in, X many years, would you still go to Wentz that second year?
Yeah, I would. You stick with your plan. I mean, I define that as a good problem to have when you have quarterbacks that are too good and quarterbacks that are winning. But, I think Bradford's going to win out. The money's going to be too much. I mean, you can't. Another reason why you can't sit Bradford this year, it's a $20 million contract. You're not sitting $20 million for 16 games. So I think Bradford's in here for 1 year as the starter. After this year, he's gone in whatever capacity that is. He'll be gone. You start Wentz year two. I think it's a pretty clear, cut plan where you get a best of both worlds.
In a
I mean,
situation like that,
that's the plan, Alex. But plans change. I mean, if Bradford comes out and wins you a playoff game, I think you have Bradford start in 2017. If Bradford goes on some miracle run, brings the conference championship, brings it to the Super Bowl somehow, you're not going to go to Wentz.
Well, okay, you said playoff game, not Super Bowl. Super Bowl's a different story, but we'll deal with those problems after you hoist the Lombardi Trophy. If that's
Exactly.
the worst case, that's the worst case scenario. Then you take it, you figure things out, in the off season. But as it appears, Bradford for 1 year, Wentz will start year two.
Yes, that is the plan. I agree, but plans change.
And see, this is the whole reason why I didn't want. One of the reasons why I should say that I didn't want to go with the quarterback, because I wanted to give Bradford that extra year. Again, this contract, as you mentioned, Tyler, is not a long-term deal. It's kind of a prove-it-to-me type of deal with an option for the second year if you do well in the first year, which is why I think the Eagles should have given Bradford that chance by giving him the best weapons he can around him, by staying at 8, taking a lineman, taking maybe Elliott had he had fallen, or trade back for a receiver, whatever the case may be, and continue to build the defense like they had, and then see what you actually had in Bradford. Then if you didn't have anything in Bradford, then you could have gone to the next year when I think the quarterback class could be better. Then you can find a position to maybe in a position to draft somebody late in the first round, kind of like what the Broncos did this year at the end, trading up for a guy like a Paxton Lynch, if that happens to be the guy. So that's why I don't think the Eagles should have made this trade per se. But as far as getting back to the preseason, and if Wentz were to show up, Tyler, and light it up on the field, as you and I have both seen, the preseason, especially for the Eagles lately in the last few years, can be very deceiving. You can look really good in the preseason, but again, you're facing vanilla defenses. As Alex said, he's probably not going to be facing first team defenses. I'll be curious to see how many first team reps the Eagles might give him this preseason, or if they wait till next preseason. But that's another topic for another day. But again, if he were to light it up again, the preseason is very deceiving. Stick with that plan. Sit him for 2016. Bring him back in 2017, unless somehow Bradford has a big year where the Eagles maybe win a playoff game or two, make a deep playoff run. Then we have to have a different conversation. But as far as it is, you sit Wentz 2016, let him develop, let him learn, maybe play him in a couple of games late in the season if it's a lost season, which I think it might be, and then you kind of go from there and try to get prepared for 2017 as of right now.
But, Matt, hopefully next year the Eagles don't have a number 2 overall pick. I mean, I think going into
they're not going to, because they lose the first-round pick to Cleveland.
Okay, yes. But going to this offseason, they were, like 15th? Then they made that trade with the Dolphins. I think at the beginning of this offseason, the Eagles had no intention of drafting the quarterback. But once it moved up to 8, that's when they thought, we're within earshot of getting a quarterback, franchise quarterback, very good quarterback. We're probably never going to have this opportunity again for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Hopefully not going to win 4 games next year. Hopefully next year they go 9, 7, 10, and 6, and they're nowhere near the top of the draft. You have, and if Bradford works out, great. Then you have Wentz as your backup. If it doesn't work out, then you have Wentz coming in next year. So I think when I said at the beginning, when you have a chance to go after a franchise quarterback, you go after him no matter what.
Okay. I guess we'll have to rest it there for now. We'll get to the rest of the Eagles draft class. So I actually did some grades, guys. Having teachers as parents, I like the letter grades. So I gave the Wentz pick a C, because of course there's just a lot of unknowns. So it's literally almost a 50-50 chance. So I gave it a C because there's a lot of things that he has to prove. Again, I like some things that he has in from a physical standpoint, but again, I talked about all mental. I see one quarterback on tape. We'll see if he can improve that now at beginning with rookie camp next weekend. So now we go to the rest of the Eagles picks. You have Isaac Seumalo in the 3rd round. They get an offensive right guard from Oregon State. I actually like the pick a lot. Pretty solid in the run game. Drives his man well. Keeps his hands inside. Pulls well. Quick off the snap. The only issue I have with him is his technique overall in pass protection. Has to work on his balance. He has a tendency not to stay low that well. Kick slide needs work. Sometimes does get grabby. His hand is a little bit sloppy, trying to keep it inside a little bit. But I do know he has a good amount of strength. I think he proved that pretty well. And I know a lot of people had him as a 4th, 5th round grade. I had it actually as a late third, early fourth round grade, so I don't think the Eagles were totally wrong there. I don't think it really was a reach, so I gave that a B minus. Now the other kid I'm also really interested in, intrigued by, is the Eagles' fifth round pick in Wendell Smallwood, the running back from West Virginia. Ideal size for running back, 5'10", 208. I love what I see on tape. Great size, great vision, great acceleration, quick and fast, and certainly as a playmaker, very dangerous in space, has some good power as well. Of course, the big problem, off the field issues, which is kind of the theme for the rest of the Eagles draft picks that were late in the draft. But I really think Wendell Smallwood, as long as he keeps his act together, really could battle for the third running back spot with Kenyon Barner in the preseason. So he's going to be an interesting name to look at. And then the big one, the big name, Halapoulivaati Vaitai. I've been practicing.
Good job.
Halapoulivaati Vaitai, the offensive tackle from TCU. This guy, very, very frustrating. But there are some good things, I think, to build on, and I think he can be a good player. So on the positive, though, quick, good kick slide, good size, and again, I think he showed he has a good amount of strength. There was a play, I think it was against Oklahoma, where he just totally whopped the guy, went like this, threw him flat on the ground. I was like, yes, I love that in an offensive lineman. But my big thing with him is sloppy hands. It doesn't do a good job of getting his hands inside, and that to me is a big problem. Whether you lose a guy or then you become grabby and you hold, and he can't really drive his man out of the play in run blocking. So I think there's a lot to work with Vaitai, Big V as he's being called around the Eagles organization. But I think it wasn't a total wash of a pick. Then you have Blake Countess, defensive end from Auburn, in the 6th round. Think some things to build on too. I think he tackles well, has really a lot of good physicality to him, good closing speed, good tackler, and he is versatile. I think he can play both at nickel and at safety. I think if he's going to make the Eagles roster, that's probably going to be in the nickel spot, because I think that's the most thin right now. The outside corners are pretty full, considering what they did in free agency. Then you have Jalen Mills, the safety from LSU. Tyler, I know you like that pick. And then Alex McAllister, defensive end from Florida, in the 7th round. Again, off the field issues, was kicked off the team last year. Basically, he has a lot of speed and athleticism, but that's about it. So he's as raw as you can get. And then, of course, you have Joe Ward from Oregon, inside linebacker. Didn't see a whole lot on him, but I think he again brings some good speed, good athleticism, some things to work on there with him. So overall, I gave the Eagles a C because basically, again, a lot of unknowns in this draft as we were expecting. When you lose a 2nd round pick, you don't have a 4th round pick, and you have a late 3rd round pick, and then you have 5 through 7 the rest of the way. So, and you have a lot of guys that have off the field issues too. Eagles are looking to give some second chances away. So it's going to be a very interesting preseason. So Tyler, we'll go to you with the rest of the Eagles draft class.
I'm going to be really short since you talked forever, Matt. I really love Jalen Mills. If I had to give him a grade, I'd say it's, I guess, I don't know, B plus A or so. I mean, I say anytime that you can get a franchise quarterback, you're going to be there. I think Jalen Mills, very biased, but I like Jalen Mills a lot, should be a starting safety for the team. And they did a very good job addressing all their needs there in day 3. Had 4 or 5 picks on day 3. Did an outstanding job. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I risk a lot going up for Wentz, and I think it's going to pay off. And yeah.
So Ian, let me get your thoughts overall on the Eagles draft class. Obviously, minus Carson Wentz.
One of my favorite, they had 2 guys in their draft class who I really liked. The left tackle from TCU. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. I think a lot of the issues, Matt, that you kind of talked about were the fact he was playing in an offensive spread system at TCU. But what I tried to look at was just what are some things that are going to translate? And he is extremely athletic for a very big man. He's going to take some seasoning, but I think once you can put that all together and put him into a pro-style system, the athleticism is definitely there for him. Plus, I love Blake Countess. That's just a solid football player. Anytime you add solid football players to your team, it's never, ever a bad thing, as Alex, I'm sure, will say.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And Alex, your thoughts now?
I like what they did. Jalen Mills does a great job of reading the 3-step game. He's got that ability to read it and get downhill with explosion. I think he struggles. He's a little stiff when he has to turn and run, but I think that's a great value. The off the field, he had a domestic issue in 2014 that I think was probably one of the big issues that pushed him down, and some medical problems as well. McAllister is interesting. I don't know his whole story. There was some reports that he didn't get kicked off the team, that he left the team. I don't know what's going on there. That's for someone else to investigate. But he's got an ability to dip the edge and be an impact pass rusher. Countess, like Ian said, I really like Blake Countess. It's probably my favorite pick outside of Carson Wentz. This is a guy that was the defensive MVP at Auburn this past year. He spent 1 year there. He transferred from Michigan, moved to safety, and that Auburn team, that defense had talent. Whether it was Carl Lawson or Chris Frost or McKenzie or whoever other names were there. Callan's another guy that's quick twitch. Like you said, Catrillo's a good tackler with those facing the fan, even though he is undersized. He's got the corner safety versatility. So I really like that pick as well. I thought the Vaitai guy, I don't know much about. Duke Manyweather, who's a great offensive line kind of study and guru. He loved Vaitai. He was one of his favorite guys, so I'll defer to him as someone much smarter than me about offensive line play. Really liked. I thought, when you're dealing with fifth round and on, like you said, Catrillo, you don't have a lot of options. But I thought that, the Eagles made the most out of it.
And the thing that I like about the Eagles' approach here, I guess, as far as giving these guys that are going to be looking for a quote second chance, so to speak, is the Eagles send the message: we didn't have any second-round picks, we didn't have any fourth-round picks, so this is really your biggest chance that you're ever going to have in making an NFL roster, because you don't have guys that are necessarily quote we thought better than you, that went higher than you, and I think that might light a fire under these guys and to really work on their off-the-field behavior and focus on the field, in the classroom, on the field, and in the film room, and so on. So I'm really intrigued by what these guys are going to do in training camp and in the mini camps, knowing that message from the coaching staff. I mean, I'm always a guy that always kind of is alarmed by the red flags, but because the guys have been given that mentality, because the Eagles didn't have that many draft picks this year, I think it makes for a very intriguing preseason for the Eagles.
And I thought from a team need standpoint, getting a guard, the Oregon State kid in the third round, who I like as well as a physical, nasty run blocker, was huge. Because the guard play last year in Philadelphia might have been the biggest problem, and there were a lot of problems in Philadelphia last year. This is going to give you the ability to run inside zone and run that inside power game that you didn't have last year. So many runs last year were getting bounced to the outside. Part of that was poor guard play. Part of that was poor scheme by Chip Kelly. Part of it was a combination of both. So I thought, that was really the biggest need for Philadelphia, was to get some good guard play. So that was really critical.
And that's going to be a lot of the competition going on in the preseason besides the outside corners, Alex. And I think Isaac Seumalo really could battle hard for the right guard spot. He'll be battling Stephen Wisniewski, he'll be battling Alan Barbary, and so on. So it's going to be an interesting preseason for the Eagles, as it always seems to be in the last few years. So,
can I give one last quick thought to kind of double back to the Wentz pick? And because obviously the way we grade this class is going to be on Carson Wentz. If he does well, it's a great draft. If he does poorly, it really doesn't matter what anyone else does. But I thought the environment and then the structure from the coaching staff of what the Eagles have is really valuable. And maybe the most critical component than the Bradford stuff and when Wentz should play. But you have and DJ, we talked about it. You have Peterson, Frank Reich is there, and then Flippio, his quarterback coach, who was the offense coordinator in Cleveland last year. And I thought what Flip did as the OC in Cleveland was a remarkable job for how bad and how little talent that Cleveland team had. So that's the guy that Wentz is going to be working with every single day. I think Flip is a very bright mind. It's going to have a major positive influence on Carson Wentz.
Certainly will be interesting. It's definitely encouraging to see, but we'll see if it all turns out on the field. So, guys, we go into what happened in the first round. Again, a lot of big things happened, a lot of surprises, including one, Laramie Tunsil, who was projected to maybe be the #1 overall pick, but then once the Rams and Eagles trades happened, that obviously wasn't the case. We're thinking maybe he'll go #3 to San Diego, and then all of a sudden he drops all the way to 13 in Miami because of some unfortunate things that came out on social media of him with a gas mask, taking in a bong, and then has some issues with money with Ole Miss, and now Ole Miss is investigating it and now being investigated by the NCAA. So, guys, I guess the million-dollar question here is, if you're a GM on draft night Thursday, would you have drafted Laramie Tunsil, or would have you passed on him because of the now off-the-field issues that have come up all of a sudden? We'll start with Ian.
I don't know. How much tape did you watch on Jeremy Tunsil?
I'm sorry, Laramie Tunsil.
Nice. I don't know. I mean, I think before everything had come out, I think Laramie Tunsil is one of the best players in the draft. But you have the issue with Laramie Tunsil. You have the issue with Kim Dichie. There's been other issues on that Ole Miss team. I have a hard time really picking anyone from Ole Miss right now. It's just you kind of wonder what you're getting and what environment those guys have come from. There's no questioning the talent of Tunsil, Ian Dichie, any of those guys, but you just wonder what are you getting? What environment have these guys been in the last 3 or 4 years? What am I bringing into my building? So I probably would have not.
Certainly a very valid question, Ian. When you look at some of these issues that have come up and now the NCAA is looking into it, it's not a good look right now for Ole Miss, especially from a recruiting standpoint, and the guys that are on the team now maybe trying to get an NFL spot later on in their careers. But Tyler, let's go to you now on your thoughts. If you would have taken Laramie Tunsil.
Yes.
You would have, okay.
I mean, is the question, would you draft him at all, or draft him in the first round, or what was the...
Would you have drafted him at all? If he's there, if he falls to you, no matter what part of the draft it is, first, second, third, whatever, and you're there and he's on the board, do you take him knowing what you saw online?
That's a different question.
Yeah, that is a little different.
I mean, if he's there in the 7th round.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's... I mean, if this was a guy that was like a 7th round, 6th round pick and had these issues, then he's undraftable. But it's a guy that has talent and is one of it, if not one of the best tacklers in the draft. I mean, yeah, he slid a little bit, and definitely in this age here in the draft where all the picks have a locked-in number system. I think that the Dolphins need somebody. Someone's got to take a chance on him. And kind of just like, I think but a lot of different people in drafts have different issues. I mean, when it gets to the Miles Jack issue, when it gets to Jalen Smith issue, and those are injury issues. But I mean, there's 32 teams. It takes one team to fall in love with him, one team to draft him. I'm sure that he's going to be great in the NFL. I mean, this is definitely not a Johnny Manziel issue. I mean, there's not ongoing issues. One little gas mask thing, some stuff about money from his coaches. Behind the scenes, people think that it was his stepfather who they're suing each other, might release the tapes. But either way, there's really nothing else other than these issues that kind of red flag Tunsil. It just so happened that, and the timing of it was just atrocious. Right 8 o'clock, it came out. The video could have been 5 years old, 4 years old, last week. It was just very weird how it came out right 8 o'clock. But do I draft him? Heck yes, I draft him. Yeah.
Okay. Alex, we'll get your thoughts in now. I guess I should have said, first round, and then had he fall into like second or third round, I'm assuming you probably would have taken him.
Right.
That was my fault on that one.
No, I understand what you're trying to frame the question as, Catrillo. Yeah, even in this state and this era of off the field issues having such an influence over players, it really doesn't matter what you do as long as you have talent. I mean, Tyreek Hill went to the Chiefs in the 5th round, and he's on probation until 2018 for a domestic violence case. So I mean, if you have talent, they're just going to take you, and they're just going to deal with the issues. But I think DJ hit on the number one point was the timing of it. And the NCAA thing, the NFL does not care one bit about that. That is an NCAA thing for rent money, not an issue. And they think it's a financial advisor, a former financial advisor.
Right, yeah, that came out a couple hours ago, right?
Nothing's been concrete yet. But it's the timing of it. I mean, it's 10 minutes before the draft. This video comes out. You don't, like DJ said, you don't know when it was last week, 5 years ago. They ended up saying it was probably about 2 years ago for Tunsil. It's very difficult as a franchise for you to trot this guy out there in your press conference, and the first question is, what's going on with the gas mask and a bong and everything like that. It's very hard to justify that. It's very difficult to deal with, and it's something that most teams would rather avoid whenever you can choose someone like a Ronnie Stanley, who's not too far away in terms of talent. Tunsil's had these problems with off-the-field issues and some injury issues as well, so can you be available? That's the big thing with Tunsil. So, if I was picking, top 5, top 10, and I can get a Ronnie Stanley, I'm going to take Stanley over Tunsil, especially not knowing the information then that I do know now. So I totally understand why teams would be hesitant to take him.
Yeah, Alex, just to piggyback off what you said about the time, I think the biggest thing that scared away GMs, yes, was the timing, because if this one came out a couple of days ago last week, GMs would have had time to question Tunsil about this. And because it came out at 8 o'clock, you had no chance to ask Tunsil about it. So a lot of GMs kind of went back and forth with it. And as I said, it just takes one GM to like him, one GM to fall in love with him, and take that risk. And the Dolphins took the risk. We'll see what happens.
And it's not even just asking about it; it's the implications because of it. Because if it happened a week ago, he's getting put in a substance abuse program right away, and now he's at risk for being suspended down the line. He's now got he's going to be tested all the time. You're not sure he's going to be able to stay clean. If you're not in the program, you get tested once, basically in a new league year, and then you're done for the year. You can smoke pot every day. You're going to be fine. But if you're in that program, you're getting tested all the time for, I think it's a 90-month or 90-day program, a 3-month program. So that's the risk. Okay, am I going to lose this guy for a year, like what the Steelers with Martavis Bryant? That's the implication behind it. And when you don't have that information concretely known, because the NFL, we need to know everything when taking these guys. It's become that exact. It's a big turnoff.
I gotta say, if it was in the first round, I probably would have passed on him again because you just don't know all those factors like you just mentioned, Alex. But had he fallen to the second round, which would have been extremely surprising, then I probably would have taken a chance on him just because who knows how far he would have fallen, and maybe would have done it there. But first round, I definitely would have passed on him. I probably would be hesitant second round, but might take him. But if I'd have gone third or longer, then maybe I probably would have taken him just to see again. You have the second chance factor like the Eagles are doing now. But yeah, it was certainly a shock, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of how the draft went. And then Joey Bosa was taken third. That came out of nowhere because the Chargers were expected to take Jalen Ramsey or Ronnie Stanley, and then everything else kind of unfolded from there. But certainly set the tone for the draft. And a couple other surprises, guys, that happened during the draft was Miles Jack, who thought it was presumed that he might slide a little bit because of the knee injury, but then the report came out from Adam Schefter during the draft that he visited Dr. James Andrews, which of course is the big doctor around professional sports, saying he would not need microscopic surgery on his knee, which was to me a big thing. But teams passed on him in the first round, and he fell to the second round. He went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they take him there. So. And the other big one, of course, was Jalen Smith, also in the second round, going to the Dallas Cowboys. He's got a big knee issue as well, and he went a little bit higher than I thought. He was expected to take a little bit steeper of a drop than what he did. So I guess with these two guys with significant knee injuries, and Ian, we'll start with you. Would you have taken a chance on these guys? Of course, no off-the-field issues that we know of, at least. Just had significant knee injuries that could affect their career.
I think the scarier one is probably Smith, just because whenever you hear something like nerve damage, automatically I get very frightened. When it comes to Miles Jack, though, whenever the Steelers were picking in the first round, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, cornerback is probably the pick here, but I wonder if they would. You're getting tremendous value for a guy like Miles Jack who, has an athleticism that we don't usually see at the linebacker position. I was surprised that Miles Jack fell out. I thought a team would take a gamble. We saw Kandichi go in the first round. I would have taken Miles Jack over him. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, you get Ramsey and Miles Jack in the same draft class, 2 top 5 players, and you get them a round apart. If Jack's knee is fine and ready to go, then Jacksonville just got a steal, and it's a big one.
Oh, absolutely. And, of course, with the rest of the picks they had, they got Jalen Ramsey as well, plus the other young talent that they have on that defense. Gus Bradley's starting to build that up, and, we'll get to that, I'm sure, in our winners and losers later on. But, Alex, we'll go to you now on if you would have taken the chance on Miles Jack and or Jalen Smith.
Well, it's a very difficult question for me to answer. I don't have access to medical records, and as we saw with Jalen Smith, the team that took him, the Dallas Cowboys, had the team doctor that performed the surgery on him. So you find out the medical is pretty easily when you go to your doctor and be like, hey, okay, exactly, break it down for me. So I pretty much agree with Ian, though. If he is healthy, then that's a tremendous steal and tremendous value. It's a top 3, top 5 talent that you're getting in the second round for both Smith and Miles Jack. It's hard for me to say, but obviously, if you're comfortable with them, and if you get 5 years out of them, that's maybe more than a lot of rookies get. Maybe that isn't so bad, even in a worst case scenario.
D-Jock, how about you?
I think this is a little bit different than the Tunsil thing. The Tunsil thing is more of like an off-field issue, and the character issues are a little bit changeable. But when you come down to injuries, come down to knees with Jack and Smith, those are things that you really have to take pause on. I think definitely because they were drafted in the second round there, the team's got a first-round pick. So unless these players don't work out, in Jack and Smith, these teams both had first-round picks. I mean, yeah, Jack, has injury all the way back in the fall. I believe October or September, he got his injury, and there's some issues with his knee, so he's a little bit further along. But there was still some trepidation about that. But the Jalen Smith thing, I feel the most terrible about. That was a guy that's going to be a top 5 pick, perhaps, and he, tore his knee up in the, bowl game there, and he possibly could miss most of the season. They're saying perhaps. But going to your point about Alex with Smith with Dallas and their doctor being there, I mean, you're not going to say, oh, yeah, the knee's not good. So I think him going to Dallas was the only option it was going to be because their doctor's the only person that knew about his knee, yes, but he's also not going to say, oh, no, I did the surgery terribly. His knee is terrible.
Well, it's not about is it terrible. It's just what is the long-term outlook of his knee, and the doctor's going to give a fair and accurate evaluation. He's not going to lie about what it is. He's going to say what he sees. What's the risk of the microfracture surgery down the road?
Yes, but as the doctor, you're not going to say, oh no, I don't know. It's going to be a terrible outlook. I mean, as a doctor,
you can say it's a terrible outlook. I mean, you're being honest.
No, but as the doctor did the surgery, you're not going to say, oh no. You're going to say, oh, I did the best surgery ever. He's going to be great. He's going to be. You're not as the person.
Not necessarily. Yes. I mean, you saying that his outlook is bad does not mean
for a no BS assessment.
Yeah, and the doctors really can't lie about some person's medical records either, though.
He's not going to downgrade his surgery.
It's not about downgrading his surgery. It's just saying, do you believe he needs microfracture surgery 5 years from now or 3 years from now? That has no bearing on the surgery now. It's all about, does that nerve heal? Yeah, we're getting into some stuff that's probably over our heads here, but it's not about the specifics of that actual surgery. It's the long-term outlook, which really doesn't matter regardless of the doctor.
But the doctor's going to say, no, he doesn't need that. I did such a great surgery. He's not going to. The doctor's not going to.
Is the doctor Donald Trump? Because that's the vibe I'm getting over here. It's the greatest surgery ever. My goodness. I mean, I understand your point, but it's really not totally relevant.
A little bit, Alex. A little bit.
Okay. Well, I mean,
it's not really.
I don't know if I'd have a team doctor that would lie necessarily kind of embellish a little bit about somebody's medical record, but to your point though, Tyler, that when a report like Schefter's came out about Miles Jack saying he would not need the microscopic surgery, same thing for Jalen Smith, and I think both teams made the right decisions. Dallas especially, because since you had the doctor there, you're not going to get any better information than that, especially when you have Jerry Jones as your owner, who's going to grill you to the death, talking about the subject of maybe, or how would he necessarily characterize how the surgery went or how this person's health is and how long the long-term stability that he can have. So I think Dallas made the right move because, of course, the upside is obviously tremendous. I watched him at Notre Dame, and he definitely would have been a top 5 player. And Miles Jack, I agree with you, Ian. I think he was worth taking a chance to. If I were a team late in the first round, I probably would have taken a shot on him. I needed a linebacker at the time. So, but Jacksonville, though, has a lot of risk because Dante Fowler Jr., of course, had the big injury in training camp last year that he's coming back from. Now you add Miles Jack to the mix. But if all these guys actually live up to their upside and they stay healthy, plus you add in Telvin Smith, Jacksonville's defense is going to be really, really nasty in the next couple of years, and they could rise very, very quickly.
Right, yeah, the AFC South is not the most competitive, division, so it's definitely winnable for Jacksonville.
Very true. But Matt, just kind of add a little semi-question to the semi-call. I mean, yeah, Jack and Jalen Smith are two notable names out there that drop. Another name that dropped a lot, I think Alex can kind of speak to this, because he was kind of on the Steelers draft board, was Andrew Billings, the D tackle from Baylor. He was thought to be a first-round pick. Nothing happened there. Second round, no one really knew why he dropped. I think he got, in the late third round he got drafted, Alex, I believe. So just another guy that's a first-round pick. Nobody really knew why he was dropping. Something about a bulky knee. But that was a guy that kind of flew under the radar, dropping-wise, and I think he could definitely be a steal, in this draft.
If the question's to me of why he fell, obviously I was very off in my evaluation and what Billings ended up going. It sounds like the biggest issues was just can he be a pass rusher, and if you're a defensive lineman, the era of a true plugger at nose tackle doesn't exist anymore. And if they thought Billings wasn't anything beyond that, it really limited his value. So I think there were some height concerns, some length concerns, and some pass rush concerns that really dropped him the way he fell.
Since you brought the subject up, D-Jock, any other surprises that really stood out to you guys from the first round or even from the entire draft in general? Ian, we'll start with you.
Andrew Billings is the big one for me, and we just mentioned it. Mike, I didn't really have a whole lot of concerns for him. I was kind of like Alex. I thought that was a guy who, if he made it to 25, I thought that would have been a miracle for someone like Pittsburgh to take a guy like that. I think he can develop, into a very strong pass rushing defensive tackle. I thought he was a guy who, over his career, could have been a guy who could really push the pocket and give quarterbacks headaches, and not only quarterbacks, but offensive linemen in general. I still think he can do that, and the fact that the Steelers have to face him twice a year for the foreseeable future is not something that I'm real thrilled about going forward, because he, with that defensive line of Cincinnati, I think is going to be scary, and the fact that we got him in the 4th round is it's a little nuts.
Now, Alex, Tyler, any other surprises that stood out to you?
There's always a lot. I mean, you could go through the whole list. I thought Keanu Neal at 19 in the first round was the first kind of, whoa, that guy went that high. I mean, I like Keanu Neal a lot. I think he's far from a finished product, and I thought the tape that he did has as a physical, good athlete was attractive. But I thought 19 was higher than I thought. I thought guy that dropped was Noah Spence from Eastern Kentucky. Again, off-field issues could probably come into play there. But I thought he'd go in the first round as the best edge guy, and he drops into the early second.
Yeah, I mean, and also another thing, not really surprising, but how many draft picks Ohio State had broke the record.
Oh yeah,
10 picks in the first with 2 rounds or 3 rounds? 2 rounds.
First 2 rounds, yeah.
2 rounds. That just shows, I guess, how dominant the Ohio State program was, and they weren't even invited to the bowl game or anything. No, but that's just then had Urban Meyer there for day 2, all those people there. I guess that was a little bit surprising. Alabama had that record for a couple of years. They're been known as the powerhouse program, but for Ohio State to have 10 players and break it by, I think record was 8 players, and Ohio State had 10. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really stunning to see. Really cool to see too. Urban Meyer when he had the one interview with Braxton Miller, I think, during day 3 after he got drafted. It was pretty cool to see their head coach there and be a part of that and kind of share his emotion with everybody. That was definitely very cool.
The thing about the Braxton Miller, Alex, when they interviewed Braxton Miller, what team was drafting when they interviewed Braxton Miller?
The Steelers.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah, the Steelers. And they didn't go to the podium. They interviewed Braxton Miller and stayed with the interview and didn't go to the podium. I'm sure you were freaking out, waiting for the pick to come, and to read it on the bottom line.
Well, Twitter has done a good job of spoiling my fun, so I think I kind of knew with Sean Davis before it actually got announced.
Yeah, I noticed that Twitter once we got to day 3, like you were knowing picks at least five or so beforehand, which I know that they made a big deal, make sure nobody would leak picks in the first round, which has kind of been the big topic for the last 2 years or so. But yeah, once you got to day 3, you knew if you were on Twitter, you knew what was coming, 5 picks prior.
Right.
But that's just the beauty of Twitter and social media and all that. But now, guys, let's go to our winners and losers for the 2016 draft. And Alex, since you're on camera here, we'll start with you. And who else stood out to you around the league of who had some good drafts?
I thought we were all on camera, but all right. And I'm mad. The Penguins are in overtime, and I'm missing it. And now my focus is on there because they're tied up with the Capitals. I think you can go with a lot of teams.
It's the intermission right now. You're good.
All right, we gotta hurry up. We gotta finish this up then. I'm half kidding about it. I thought there's a lot of teams that you can go with. I really like what Oakland did. I mean, getting Carl Joseph at 14. I love Carl Joseph. The year 1 impact might be a little minimal because of the injury, the torn ACL. But beyond that, you're gonna get a fantastic safety that can play everywhere and carry any assignment for you. Jihad Ward in the 2nd round is a kid that I like a lot. He's got a lot of potential. He's a big guy. He's a good athlete. The production wasn't really there at Illinois. But I think there's a lot that you can work with there. Shalik Calhoun's one of my favorite guys in the draft that I thought really fell. He's going to play with his hand down, which is probably the most ideal thing for him. That's what he did at Michigan State, but ultra productive, a 42 game starter, stats through the roof. So I really like beefing up that defense, that secondary, that defensive line. Oakland just killed it, and then DeAndre Washington. I think he was their fifth round pick. I think this guy can be a 3 down back. I think he's a better pass protector than people give him credit for. I think he's got to work on the details, fumbles, catching the football cleanly. But the guy runs hard. He runs tough. He's got a little wiggle to him. I kind of get that Bilal Powell kind of feel. Some people call him Gio Bernard or Ray Rice. But I think Washington is really good value in the 5th round.
And Tyler, now let's go to you with who else you had as winners and losers from this draft class.
I mean, I'll keep it kind of short. I mean, it's kind of hard to do winners and losers. You know what's going to happen. But I think the Jaguars had an outstanding draft. I mean, you got Jalen Ramsey, plus then you got Miles Jack, who was supposed to go to the Jaguars with the 1st-round pick. Did outstanding there, plus the 2 additions of Brendan Allen and Jonathan Woodward late. I think the Jaguars did fantastic there. And my second winner here, again, kind of a biased pick. Alex knows about this fandom a little bit. My father's a big Buffalo Bills fan, so we hang on every Bills game and pick. But I think they did outstanding. Shaq Lawson in the 1st round, Reggie Ragland in 2nd round, outstanding there, and also possibly got a quarterback of the future with Cardell Jones from Ohio State. Could kind of be Tyrod Taylor could be the Sam Bradford to the Carson Wentz of Cardell Jones, where Cardell Jones sits a year out. Tyrod Taylor plays out this year, and then Jones takes over for the Bills next year. So I think Rex Ryan and Rob Ryan building that defense, going back to the staple of having great defenses. I think the Bills made off very well in this draft.
I think Rex Ryan's starting to fall in love with the mobile quarterbacks. That's for sure. When you draft Cardell Jones, you already had Tyrod Taylor. You had Geno Smith when he was with the Jets. So I think he's definitely fallen in love with the mobile quarterbacks. But Ian, let's go to you now on your winners and losers from the draft.
I love the Houston Texans draft. Will Fuller, while he wasn't my favorite player coming out of Notre Dame, I thought at times he was a bit overrated.
See, I told you all he was a first-round
DeAndre
pick.
Hopkins. It's perfect. I didn't love the pick, but I like the fact he's playing next to DeAndre Hopkins. Nick Martin, I love. Braxton Miller, KJ Dillon, the safety opposite of Carl Joseph, one of my favorite players coming out in the draft. DJ Reader. I mean, those are some players that are going to make impacts this year and are going to make your team better throughout the year. The biggest loser for me, though, I thought the Rams. I like the Jared Goff pick, but their next pick was Tyler Higbee. Really? I understand the guy's got all the talent in the world, but you got a number of off-the-field issues, including just a couple weeks ago where he's accused of saying some pretty derogatory things and getting into a bar fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to
go to my
that.
loser to make this, and again, you can point to a couple different teams, and it's tough to evaluate. I didn't think Tennessee did a great job, though. Jack Conklin at 8, that was probably the most overrated player in the draft, and a real big. I know, I'm sorry, but just can he play tackle? Can he play against edge rushers? You can't hide him at right tackle. That's a myth. It doesn't work like that. Kevin Dodd, I think, has some talent, but as a 3-4 guy. The scheme fit isn't great unless they're going to go to some more 4-down fronts. That'd be under Dick LeBeau. That'd be a little uncommon, but maybe they do. And then Derrick Henry, big debate about Derrick Henry, but I think the fact that he needs a good offensive line to succeed. Any running back that has a good offensive line should succeed. So I think Henry's a guy that has trouble creating. It's great in space, but has trouble creating, and so I wasn't crazy about that pick either.
I didn't give my losers, but kind of piggyback off you asked. I think that the Titans. I think that Derrick Henry pick was very bad. Number one, you already have Murray there, plus Henry was a workhorse in college, and I think Saban used him too much. And I think he's not going to be good in the NFL there. But I have 3 clear losers.
Make it quick.
Okay. Settle down, buddy. Settle down. I think, in no particular order, I think the Patriots had a very puzzling draft. They added Cyrus Jones, which is kind of a Patriots player there, and they did add quality route runners in Mitchell and Thuney there. But you draft Brissett in the 3rd round there. Not sure, why that is. I mean, I guess kind of freaking out because I guess they don't have Tom Brady for the first couple games. But I think they had like 10 draft picks and really weren't that overwhelmed. I mean, and then that Brissett pick was very strong when there was better quarterbacks on the board, A and B. You don't even really need a quarterback. So it's kind of odd there. Then I think the Panthers had a bad draft. I mean, I think they only had 5 draft picks or so. I think Vernon Butler could be a big disruptor in the interior for years to come. But other than that, didn't do too much. They added Bradbury and Worley as secondary help there, but not sure what they're doing there. And I think Matt's going to really love this here. I think the Niners had a terrible draft.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
I was not, up on Buckner at all. It has an Oregon product there. Didn't like him. And then you draft, and then you trade back into the first round to get Garnett from Stanford.
No, actually, I like that pick because I thought Garnett was actually a higher first-round pick, to be honest with you. And finally, Chip Kelly recognized that you need to draft offensive linemen. So that tells me he actually learned something for once as an NFL head coach and actually adapted. And I think Garnett could be a good player in this league. So that was my one pick that I did like from the Niners.
I mean, but if you're going to trade back into the first round, that shows that Garnett is a can't miss first rounder and everybody loves him. But he wasn't going to be there. And other than that, I think they had 10 picks total and didn't do too much. I mean, they added some pretty good cornerback depth there in the middle rounds. Picked up Jeff Driscoll late. Not sure why, but they did. But then their day 3 was really average. Nobody really didn't pick well on day 3. So I think Chip Kelly once again is off to a terrible start with already terrible Niners roster.
And of course, some reports seems to already be having some run-ins with the 49ers front office. But that'll definitely be something to watch as we get closer to the season. But I'll go with my winners and losers now. For losers, since we're on that subject, I thought number 1, Tampa Bay. What are they doing trading up for a kicker? I get he's good. He is. I think he'll be a productive kicker in the league. But even if a kicker is that good, you don't think about taking a kicker until day 3, not day 2 even. I was an unfathomable pick that they even made that move. I was just flabbergasted by that. Now, secondly, of course, Cleveland, they continue to amaze us every year. 4 wide receivers they draft. The only one I like, Corey Coleman, as I mentioned, he was in my top 3 receivers. But then other than that, they make you scratch your head again, as Cleveland usually does. And then to me, Kansas City. To me, I think they were a little bit under-aggressive, if you will. They kept trading back, and to me, they really weren't getting much talent there. They finally picked in the second round and got Chris Jones. They did get Russell from Notre Dame, who I think will be a pretty decent player. So that was probably the big one that I liked out of that. Other than that, I really wasn't impressed with what they did, and I wasn't really impressed with their approach that just kept trading back. So I didn't think they didn't have the best draft in the world. But going to my winners, I agree, Alex. I mentioned this earlier. Jacksonville's picks was just tremendous. Of course, you get Miles Jack, you get Jalen Ramsey, like we mentioned. You get Tyrone Holmes from Montana. I thought that was an interesting pick in the 6th round. He'll be something to look out for. Sheldon Ray out of Notre Dame, love that pick. He was one of the top players on the Irish's defensive line. So again, a lot of good defensive pieces. So you can tell Gus Bradley had his hands on this draft, trying to rebuild that up. Now, if they can continue to build that offense, the Jaguars, they're going to be moving up pretty fast, as you mentioned, Alex. AFC South is a division that's struggling with the way the Colts are right now, and the Titans and the Texans. So I think the Jaguars put themselves in good shape again if those guys stay healthy on the defensive side of the ball. And then I really love what the Redskins did in the draft. I think picking up Josh Doctson was big. You put him with Deshaun Jackson, Niles Paul, Jordan Reed. Those are 4 good studly receivers that the Redskins will have for Kirk Cousins, who was going to be going into a big year after he signed the franchise tag. And they address a lot of secondary needs that they needed to do. Love Kendall Fuller in the 3rd round out of Virginia Tech. I think that addresses a big need to get a guy maybe opposite of Josh Norman, though I think the Josh Norman signing doesn't solve all of the secondary issues that Washington has. They already have a pretty decent front 7, so I think the Redskins are going to be one of the teams to beat as they return as a defending NFC East champs. So those are my winners from this draft, and then losers as well. Tyler.
Matt, 2 things. Number 1, is there a Notre Dame guy that you've ever hated, ever? Like, is there anybody that just it's Notre Dame guy, I love him. He goes Notre Dame.
You know what? Awesome. You know what? Everett Golson, actually, he frustrated me a lot.
Well, okay, he went to Florida State. He went to Florida State after.
Well, when he was with Notre Dame, even though he brought Notre Dame to the championship game, there were times where I was extremely frustrated with him. It was the way he conducted himself off the field and some of the stupid mistakes he made on the field. That he'd probably be my big standout. I think, and I actually wasn't a big fan of Brady Quinn either, just because of all the turnovers he had, and he couldn't win a big game for the Irish. So I would say those 2 probably stand out.
All right. Then my second point, more onto our point here, with Aguayo, the kicker, going to the Bucs. I mean, any other year, it would have been terrible. I think it was still kind of bad. But I think especially with them moving, Alex, what are you looking at, Alex?
The Penguins game. It's overtime. I can't. I want to at least.
It's okay. It's okay. I haven't put my glasses on.
The volume will be off.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But with the Aguayo thing.
Can we give you the play-by-play, Alex?
Yeah.
I can. It's better than talking about Everett Golson and Brady Quinn.
Actually, only Doc Emmer can do the play-by-play. He's doing a game right now. Anyway, let's get back to our draft.
I'd rather talk about the 2017 draft. Can we talk about the 2017 draft rather than Everett Golson?
Let me just get my point in real quick about Aguayo. I think definitely with them moving back to extra points, it's not automatic anymore. You still need a very good kicker. I mean, I still wouldn't trade him in 2nd round, but you need a good kicker. And we've lost control here. Of everybody.
I am honestly
listening. He's doing good. Yeah.
Thank you for the support. But the kicker thing. Aguirre's a great kicker. I'm not totally opposed to taking him in the 2nd round, but to trade up. Well, we've seen Mike Nugent, so Janikowski won the first years ago. But to trade up and do it and give away picks for that's a little too much for me. So I wasn't crazy about. I'm not, Aguirre's a great kicker. The kicker people that I'm friends with, they really like him, so that's good enough for me.
Kicker people.
Yeah, no, Chuck Zada from Inside the Pylon. He was a kicker in college. Studies it, breaks it down extremely well. Go follow his stuff. He's the expert on kickers.
Kickers are not real football players, but continue.
Punters are people too.
Oh, come on.
Ian,
did you have any thoughts on this kickerness here?
Kickerness.
I'm making up
I thought now. Second round was a little bit early. But I think kickers. I mean. Sometimes you can consider them a dime a dozen until you're in Pittsburgh this year and you went through 4 of them before you finally found a guy who was good. So if you think a guy is good enough and you think he can be a guy who's going to kick and be a clutch kicker for you for the foreseeable future, then hey, that's a good pick then.
All right, well, there we go. And I guess I'm the one that was totally against it, but I just thought trading up was just outrageous. But well, that will do it for this edition of the Football Friday podcast. I want to thank Ian Hunter for coming on and joining us. Ian, it was a pleasure to have you on, and I'm sure we will have you on in the future. And, of course, we'll probably be talking once we get closer to training camp.
I'll be ready for the 2017 draft, Matt. I've already started watching tape. I know Alex looked at me
Look at the dedication.
When he and I started talking about prospects for next year.
Penguins win. Sorry to cut you off, but that was not a celebration for you. That was a celebration for the Penguins.
Hornquist.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was a little delayed. Yay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to spoil
I have victory now. Yes,
it's
okay. It's all right. Yay. All's well. Right.
All right, so we can talk for like 20 minutes now because now I have my attention.
The over.
The Penguins suck.
I hate both teams, so I'm just enjoying the series. That's been a great series. So.
So did you have a question about like impact rookies? Did you want to talk about that, or do you want to cut that, Catrillo? Because you had something on the rundown, our rundown about the 3 impact rookies or something.
I had omitted it, but we got time. We'll make this our final question since we got some
All
time
right,
now
just
since the
just give
10-1.
one, just give
Real
one
quick,
for each side. Don't do
yeah.
three.
Give me an impact player, whether you think it's the quarterback class or whatever, that's going to be the biggest impact in the NFL. Alex, since you brought it up, we'll start with you.
I mean, I think you can go in a lot of different places, and I agree that the Browns draft in general was probably not the best, but I love the pick of Corey Coleman. He was my top receiver. Hugh Jackson, and getting him in space and his RPOs is really big. So I think Corey Coleman's going to have a day one impact and really give some energy and some talent to that Browns receiver group that's really starved for it. I think defensively, I'll give you two really quick. Deion Jones from Atlanta is going to be middle linebacker, going to start day one and fly around the football. He's undersized, but a tremendous athlete. He's going to be a starter, so you're going to get a lot of production from him and some playmaking that the Falcons need. And then Shaq Lawson from Buffalo as an edge guy. The Bills lost Mario Williams. It didn't work out. They have some bad blood between them. Lawson's a guy that's refined, can contribute day one. He's a great character guy, high motor. So I think he's going to have a day one impact.
Ian, what do you got here as far as impact players you think for the future here?
My impact players, if we're looking at day one or possibly at least first season contributors, Javon Hargraves, the third round pick for the Steelers, I think is a guy who cares about the fact he played for a lower level college. The guy dominated on tape. I think he's going to bring that. I think he's going to play very well in the NFL, and I think he's going to be in a position to succeed. So Hargraves is a guy who I think could be pretty good really early on. Lawson's another guy. I think Carl Joseph, once he gets rolling this year, not sure about early impact, but I think towards the back half of the year, I think is going to be a really special player in the NFL.
And DeJoc.
Who we talking about? Oh, I think.
Surprise player here.
Way to pay attention, D-Jock.
I mean, Alex mentioned Corey Coleman. I mentioned Josh Doxson for the Redskins. I know you did, Alex. Great wide receiver. He's my number one wide receiver. But I think the biggest impact will be Ezekiel Elliott, but not because of his running ability. I think because he's a great pass blocking running back, and if you can keep Tony Romo healthy and you have another blocker in that backfield, on that line, I think that's going to be where he's going to make that biggest impact. I don't think Dallas will run him ragged either. Maybe 10, 12 carries a game, a couple receptions out of the backfield. But I think him as a running back blocker will do dividends if you can. Because I just saw if Tony Romo is as unhealthy as injured, the Cowboys don't do anything. So I think Elliott's blocking ability will be the biggest impact, for any team this year and going forward.
That's a great point.
I really hope, D-Jock, that you're wrong about Ezekiel Elliott, but I do agree. I think he could make a big impact with the Cowboys. And I'm going to stay in the NFC East for mine. I'm going to go Sterling Shepard with the Giants. I mean, you put him aside. You already put in what he brings to the table, plus you put him aside Odell Beckham Jr., and with the few years that Eli Manning has left for the Giants, I think he's going to make a major impact with the Giants, and I think that's that pick. I think the Giants had a good draft too, and I think that'll make that offense a lot more potent. They get back to the passing game the way it should be, setting up the run. That's how they won the Super Bowls, run to the play action, and plus the front four they made. I think that makes the Giants a much better team, and I think that's going to be that might turn into another dynamic duo, especially now it looks like Victor Cruz may not be coming back as early as the Giants indicated. So I like Sterling Shepard a lot, and I'm gonna go Ronnie Stanley as well. Again, just his athleticism that he brings and his overall technique to me, especially one-on-one pass protection, which you're gonna have to do so well in this league to be successful, I think is really just superb. And I think he's going to do a great job with Baltimore as well. But definitely Sterling Shepard, too. Those are my top two for right now.
Where did Ronnie Stanley go to college, Matt? I forget.
ND.
No wonder you picked him.
No, I really, again, looking at it objectively, I think Tunsil can be the same way, too. But I just hold back because I don't know what's going on with him off the field. But I think Tunsil can be the same way as well. When you talk about two very athletic linemen that are just superb in pass protection and the rest and running and run blocking and everything else, he certainly can make an impact too, but I just don't know what's going on with him as far as off the field's concerned. So I looked at my next one, that's Ronnie Stanley, and I think him and, as I mentioned, Sterling Shepard, I think are going to be two good impact players in the league.
And Josh Garnett as well. I really like that Garnett to trade up.
I agree.
He's Upati 2.0. I mean,
I mean, but to trade back into the first round, I don't know.
He's a 10-year starter to me. I'll trade up for those guys every day. And Catrillo has left. I think we lost
Okay.
our moderator who's supposed to close things out here.
Things have gone haywire here. This is just so.
Oh, okay, it's your charger.
Hey,
Okay, you
buddy.
couldn't hold on for another like 4 more minutes, Catrillo? Is your battery really gonna die?
He can't hear us right now.
Yeah, computer's gonna die. I'm sorry. I should have had that earlier, and I thought it was gonna last, but I didn't.
Amateur hour. How do you not charge your computer?
Basically over anyway. Any final thoughts here to wrap things up, guys? Ian, any final thoughts?
I think we pretty much. I mean, we covered pretty much everything. I mean, it was a good draft. I mean, it was a fun draft, and looking forward to training camp starting up here soon.
Yes, sir. Catrillo?
No, I think we got everything. It certainly was a very memorable draft. A lot of crazy things happened, and the Eagles are going to be fun to look out for. I think the Steelers are going to be very interesting with those first 3 picks just to see what kind of impact they make right away with the team. I think the NFC East is going to be interesting. So there's a lot of good, follow Tunsil as well, and I'm really curious to see also where. How big of an impact this quarterback class makes, especially Carson Wentz and Jared Goff at the top. So there's a lot of good things to look at, a lot of good nuggets to look at to make for an interesting preseason for sure.
DeGiacomo?
Nothing really. I think 9 wins NFC East, and I think the Broncos go back to Super Bowl. They didn't change much in the defense. Got a quarterback that can, manage the game. I think the Broncos right now are had to get a quarterback. That's all needed, and I think they're gonna make a deep run again.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know if I would have done that, but hey, I like the bold pick. I'm a guy who always likes to.
Save Mark Sanchez as the backup.
Yeah. Okay.
Your boy.
See. Yeah, absolutely. Love me some Mark Sanchez. Not. Anyway, that will do it for this edition of the Football Friday podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in to us, and we'll hopefully be back around once we get training camp going for a big preview show, and then we'll hopefully go weekly again like we did back in our Clarion days. Once the season gets going once again, we'll keep you all updated on that. So for Tyler DeGiacomo, Alex Cazorla, and Ian Hunter, I'm Matt Catrillo, and Alex will close it out from here.
All right. Well, I was just going to hit the stop broadcast button, but I'm going to do that now. So thank you guys again for watching. And, yeah, we'll be back whenever we're back. I don't know when that's going to be, and this is a terrible way to close things out, which is the point of Catrillo, to say this so I can just hit the button, but I'm going to hit the button now. So thank you guys for watching.